This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting for the Real News from Athens, Greece. I'm at the University of Athens today for part 2 of our interview with Michael Spourladakis. Michalis is the professor of political sociology and the dean of the School of Economics and Politics at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. He's also a member of the executive of the Nikos Poulantzas Institute and of the collective of the Social Register, and importantly, the chair of the hearing committee for the revision of the Greek Constitution. Thank you for joining us, Michalis.
Thank you, Dimitri. Good to have you back.
So when the Syriza government was first elected in January of 2015, there was a lot of discussion, and understandably so, about the overwhelming power of the Greek oligarchy in Greek politics and economics, and in particular in the media, and the nefarious influence that this was having upon the state of Greek democracy. What, broadly speaking, do you feel the government has been able to accomplish since January 2015 in terms of constraining the power of the oligarchy?
Only partially, I must be honest about that, but the forces of this oligarchy are amazing. Okay, let's, first of all, the Greek channels never paid a penny, and they operate...
You're talking about the TV channels.
TV channels, right. They operate, and some radio stations as well, right? They operate with no licenses. They don't pay a penny to the government. Now there is a national regulatory committee which is appointed through a very complicated, if you like, process by the Greek parliament. It oversees these things. And somehow the government had a lot of problems to appoint a new committee since its mandate had expired a long time before Syriza took power. So it took some time until Syriza government, with all this other stuff, to tackle this issue. And this has hurt Syriza a lot. Nowadays, there are things that this government is doing positive for the people, along with the things which might be hurtful for the economy, with the imposition of austerity policies, and these are never provided. It is one-sided 100% with almost all. Behind this media, there are strong economic and political powers of the old regime. At some point last year, the minister responsible for that introduced a law, and through a also very complicated process, decided that they should get license and they should pay for that. They were forced to participate in this procedure, but the Supreme Court at some point questioned a small part of the respective law, and the whole process sort of was nullified. We said that eventually the license are going to be given finally by this new regulatory agency. And when this was decided, a new study came out, and they said that we're going to have 7 channels which are going to broadcast nationally, and they have to pay this amount of money. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, again, some of them appeal for the new decision. It seems to me that they don't want to settle this. But in the field of the media, Syriza managed to reopen our national TV and radio,
which had been shut down by the predecessor
conservative in 2013 right. by the right-wing or the coalition right-wing PASOK government.
This is ERT, E-R-T.
This is ERT. Yeah. This is ERT, right. right. And they provide to the people a bit more balanced information of what's going on. Syriza, which has doesn't display, as has been accused, with a vindictiveness attitude taking and administering Greek government. They rehire both the people who resisted the closure, the shutting down of the old earth, and because your audience should know that for 5-6 months there were a self-management by the strikers.
Right.
Of the
They basically continue to broadcast.
They continue to broadcast despite all the restrictions of the previous government. So they rehired these people, and also they rehired for those who had found employment in the new public TV that occupied. And so the two cultures somehow, they all this time they try to find a new convivial like arrangement and be creative. I think is doing well, and if one would like to have a more balanced information, this is the TVs, 3 channels, and this is the radio stations that one can follow. In the area of media, Syriza's government is extremely weak. It's one thing that, and overall communication, because for the, I don't know, maybe 15 dailies in the country, maybe more or less, I can't remember, you know, it's only one center-left daily, which actually is part of a co-op with respectful circulation, actually, 2nd or 3rd in the country, or maybe 2 of them now, and the Parties Daily, which sort of try to counterbalance polemic articles and information and the fake news that they are provided by other newspapers. And the other outlet that Syriza government has is Stokokino, which is a radio station, and another weekly, Epochi, that they have very little, very limited audience. So it is a bit difficult to run this.
So one particular development, clearly this has been a problem bedeviling the party, the dominance of the media by the wealthiest class in the country, and a very right-leaning perspective being constantly foisted upon the Greek public. But after the government of Alexis Tsipras began to address this problem, last year there was an auction under the media law that was struck down, and one of the winners of the auction, if the auction had actually been upheld, was a person by the name of Evangelos Marinakis, or Marinakis.
Right.
And he's, I understand, a wealthy ship owner. His father was also a wealthy ship owner. He is the owner of the Greek football club Olympiakos.
The most popular team.
Yes, and in fact he's become embroiled in a match-fixing scandal, and there have been allegations of...
Many allegations.
Yes.
The list is long.
Correct.
You know.
And that may or may not, he's not been convicted, I understand, but that may or may not result in some type of conviction being entered against him. But the thing that was striking to me was that, first, if the law had been upheld and the auction had been validated, he would have been one of the 4 winners of a TV license. Mm-hmm. And then in this past July, a company controlled by Marinakis acquired an organization called Lambrakis, which is a major media empire.
The major.
And it includes, it owns the 2 oldest dailies in the country, a popular news portal, magazines, and a radio station, and it also has a 22% stake in, I think it's Mega, a TV station. And it strikes me
impressively informed. Impressively informed. Yeah, that's exactly that.
It's odd that now I must say that What steps the government could have taken to prevent this from happening, I don't know, and I'd be interested in hearing from you about that. But it strikes me that this is the exact opposite of what Syriza would want. A ship owner with this concentration of wealth, acquiring this control over these important media assets. How did that happen, and how is this consistent with the government's effort to rein in oligarchic dominance of the media?
You know, I don't think the government could do anything in that. To my knowledge, someone who is more informed and knows, you cannot do. And there is always ways, as you are a law person, you know, there is always a way of bypassing the restrictions of law, either making a new company or giving to somebody else, so you want mixed media and business. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of things. And at the same time, the pressure was because the unemployment in the area of media, it's maybe over 80%. And if this conglomerate of Lambrakis had fallen, it would have been more accusations against the government. So the government didn't interfere much in this process, and you know, and this is why we have this kind of arrangement.
Right, right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Michalis, again for joining us. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and I will be inviting you back, I'm sure, onto the Real News to continue to monitor the progress of the crisis.
I hope, thank you very much for being here, and also hope next time we'll meet, and I would be soon, the country will have more oxygen to find its own way out of this plight we're in. And the signs are on the wall, but we have a long way to go, and we have to be patient. It's a huge, painful marathon race that we have to go through,
right,
and
really
dealing with major issues.
Right. Thank you very much again. And this has been Dimitri Lascaris for the Real News Network, reporting from the University of Athens in Athens, Greece.